Hi everyone, it's Talia from Zart Art, and today we're going to be making a washi tape and watercolour pattern extension. So here are some examples of what we'll be creating today. So in this little example here, you can see we've used a pattern washi tape and torn it into smaller pieces on our page. So if you can see really fine details here of where we've got our strip of tape, and then we've extended that pattern on the tape here with some watercolour. So we're going to be working with some patterns and extending those. We've got a few different examples using some different kinds of tape. So we're going to be using a natural washi tape, so we're using some native flora, some different kinds of flowers in different designs. You could also use other patterns such as this indigenous washi tape. So here we've kind of extended the design but changed it up a little bit by incorporating different symbols to what was on the washi tape to kind of make our design a little bit unique. But for this particular example, what I'm going to do is choose a pattern of washi tape. If you don't have any washi tapes to use, what you could do as well is use a patterned paper. So if you've got paper that already has a pattern on it, or you could print out a pattern design and tear that up or cut that up and use it on your page. So using washi tapes, I think I'll use this pattern because there's some really lovely colours on there and some fine detail which I think will work well for this activity. Choosing a piece of paper. So a thicker paper is good, 130 GSM or above is best. We're not soaking our page in watercolour, so it doesn't need to be too sturdy. And I'm just going to frame off a section of my paper because I don't want to fill in a whole A4 page. That will take a little while. I'm just going to do a smaller section, but of course you can choose to go really large or really small in your design. It's completely up to you and depends on how much time you have. Now with our washi tape, I'm going to tear small little sections of my tape and stick that around my framed area. So you can tear long pieces, short pieces, you can fill up a lot of the area or you can fill just a few small areas, depending on how much you want to draw, if you want to cover your whole page or just a little bit of a section of the page. You can change the direction in which the tape is running, or you can have it running the same way. It's all up to you. This can be quite a nice little warm-up activity, or even a mindfulness activity could be incorporated in this where you're just concentrating on the patterns and recreating those. Or you could look at the patterns and extend them into your own unique design. So you could think of different flowers that you could incorporate into that washi tape design. So you can see here I've got a few sections of washi tape and now we're going to extend upon that. So depending on how you like to work, you could use a pencil to draw in some of your design and then erase it later when you go back over with a marker, so a fine liner, or you can head straight in with a fine liner. It depends on whether you like to make your marks permanent from the onset or if you like to have a bit of a play and rub them out and try again. I'm going to go straight in with my fine liner. So I find a really fine liner works best for me, and I'm using this grey fine liner. You could use a black one, but I feel like the colours in this washi tape aren't as harsh as what you would probably want if you're using a black tape or a tape that has some harsher lines and some more defined patterns like this one. Then you might want to use a black fine liner, but for this one the colours are a bit softer, so I'm going to use a softer colour. Now choose a section of your washi tape where you want to start and then start extending on that pattern. So you have your reference tape here where you can see some of those shapes like in this flower, you can see how it ends, or you can kind of create your own design. So in the washi tape, the flower doesn't have a leaf extended on it, but I want to kind of make it a bit more unique. So I'm going to add a little bit of my own pattern into these designs. But how I generally like to start with this washi tape process is going from one section of the tape and then extending it out, and you can go as far or stay in as much as you want. So if you wanted to extend one piece of tape to the next, you can keep drawing your pattern until it reaches the next section, or you can just stay in smaller sections and group those sections around your tape. But for now, I'm just going to continue some of my patterns, refer to the design on my washi tape, make a few of my own designs and extend that pattern as I go. So now I've drawn in most of the detail that I want to add into my work. Of course, you could fill in more of these negative spaces if you wanted to fill out your whole page with pattern, or like I've done, just stick to some smaller sections, or you could go even smaller if you wanted to. Just depends on how much time you have and whether you're using this as a finished piece, a warm-up activity, or just something as a mindfulness practice where you just want to concentrate on those patterns and recreating them and making different patterns if you want to. So now the next step is to add our watercolor. So I've got this set of watercolor paints, and I think small brushes are best for this activity because the patterns on the washi tape are small. It will work a bit better if you've got a smaller brush to add in those details. If you're using larger pages of paper, saying pattern paper you might be using, then you could use large brushes, but for me, I think a small brush will work well. Now you can play a little bit with the color matching here. If you wanted to, you could put down a piece of washi tape onto another piece of paper and work with the colors and mixing the colors, trying to get the exact same recreation. Or if you're not too bothered and you just want to kind of have a little bit of a play on the page, then you can go straight into it. So I'm looking at some of my colors here, and we've got a bit of an orangey red. Now with watercolor, the more pigment you want on the brush, the more times you just go over your dried watercolor, and then you'll get a denser pigment and a darker color. Now that orange isn't quite the same as the one on the tape, which is fine, you can move on if you wanted to, but we've got a little bit more of a reddish orange happening in here, and you can add some of that detail in as well, like some of the lines that you might be able to see, or play with the textures. So whether you want to create a perfect finished artwork, you might want to have a bit of a play with these colors on a spare piece of paper, but if this is just for a little bit of fun, then just go directly on your page. And like I said before, you can be as precise as you want, or you can be really loose with your colors. So for example, this one here, we've gone pretty loose with the colors as well as with the pattern. So we've got more repeating blobs than really focusing on getting in those leaf shapes, and that works quite well in itself. Or you can get really, really fine detail and try and do all of those small patterns like this piece is more leaning towards. But up to you, lots of variations for this work. Now I'm going to work through my shapes and my patterns and try to color match in sections as best I can, but more just having a play with how a watercolor will blend and how it looks on the page. Okay, so I've added my watercolor to my piece. Now you can go in there and really get some fine details, really try and match those colors, but if you're just doing this kind of work for something that's for yourself, just for a bit of fun and you're not too worried about getting the perfect match, then I think something like this is fine. You can still kind of see where the tape is, but it blends in quite well, and I'm quite happy with how the patterns are sitting. I could have filled in that extra space, but I think I'll leave that as it is. Now, if you do want to finish off your work, you can just cut off that section that is on the edge. So the washi tape makes a great ruler for where your cut is. And if you wanted to go further upon this in terms of presentation, you could washi tape the whole edge and frame it, or you could use a mount and frame that if you wanted to display your finished work. But otherwise, that's our washi tape pattern exploration. I hope you enjoyed this video and I look forward to seeing you next time.